Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to be talking about Ethereum, and we're going to be just providing a macro level update here and what I'm looking for over the coming months. So let's look back. Back in November, December timeframe, we talked extensively about how Ethereum slash Bitcoin, so the ratio of Ethereum to Bitcoin, was undervalued, and we expected a move up with Ethereum. And we saw that. If we go to the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio, we can still see that it actually hasn't lost all the ground that it gained in earlier this year. So, we've seen a move here, and it's unclear if we're going to come back down, but what are we looking for in the coming days? What are we looking for in the coming weeks to try to get an idea of what we should be doing. So if you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel and check out the Telegram channel in the description below if you'd like to talk about the content with around 2,300 other people. So one of the things I want to do is let's go back to December. So this is when we were talking about Ethereum and saying it's poised for a breakout, not only with respect to US dollar, but with respect to Bitcoin. And one of the reasons we looked at it in terms of why we think it might break out was somewhat of an elementary reason, just looking back in time and noticing that every Q1 we see it go up 2 to 5x. And that's not just me making it up. You can go back and look, and in general you'll see Ethereum have a run in the first quarter. And we saw that. Clearly we've retraced some. You could say it's part of the pandemic, potentially people liquidating their high risk assets. Ultimately, if Bitcoin's going down, if Bitcoin is crashing by 50%, then Ethereum is also certainly going to be crashing. That's not news. That is something we know. One of the things I talk about a lot is when Bitcoin's above the 20-week, I think Ethereum does quite well, and some altcoins in general. And when it's below the 20-week, they tend to underperform Bitcoin. So I try to keep the channel focused on the macro level picture. I'm not just here to talk about one coin and say just go all in on this. We want to look at really what's going on. So if you look at what Bitcoin was doing back in December of 2019 and then going into the first quarter, you can see here when that happened, Bitcoin bounced off the 100-week moving average and went up to the 20-week. So if you go back, right around that time, when Bitcoin went above the 100-week, this is when Ethereum started really pumping. And it further pumped when Bitcoin got above the 20-week moving average. And the 20-week moving average for Bitcoin is historically, a bull, we're starting to probe the territory of a potential bull run. Now, I would like to, I'd point out that we need to test that 20-week moving average for weeks and weeks, months even, to really confirm that the bull run is here. And so far, we have not been able to do that. We tested it back in September at 10K and failed to hold it and came straight down to the 100-week. We tested it in February or March at 8.5K and failed to hold it and came straight down to the 200-week. So what I'm looking for with Ethereum, I'm looking for Bitcoin to get over the 100-week moving average, primarily because, last time when we made this move from the 100 to the 20-week, this is when Ethereum started making its move. And you can see that it also corresponded to right around the time that Ethereum broke the 20-week itself. Now, I'm not saying, I don't think the 20-week moving, or sorry, the 20-day, sorry, not the 20-week. So I don't think Ethereum necessarily respects the same moving averages as well as Bitcoin does. But it is, I just wanted to point out how similar, we are coming under the 20-day and then about to, we popped back above it right when Bitcoin started moving above the 100-week. And now we're pretty much in the same region. If we were to switch over to the weekly candle, you can see that back in January, Ethereum did get above the 20-week. And right now, Ethereum is well below the 20-week. The 20-week is currently at around 167. So we're pretty far below it as we currently sit. So I'm looking for Bitcoin to get above the 100-week And if we can start to see a move to the 20-week, then in the short term, I will be a much more bullish on Ethereum. Remember, this is not a game of, just rush everything in. It's a game of patience and diligence, coming up with a plan and sticking to it, noting that historically, if it's better to consolidate your positions when Bitcoin is in bear market territory below the 20-week, and to diversify above the 20-week. Now, so for most coins, I won't even consider touching them until Bitcoin is above the 20-week, because you can kind of imagine when the 20-week always seems like it's so, when we're in a bear market, the 20-week usually seems like this nebulous price that, man, if we could just get back to that point, we're going to be cooking. All right. And now I think it feels like that again. I mean, it's currently at $7,800, and while a few months ago that would have seemed like a bad price, right now it seems like a really good price if Bitcoin could get to it. And that is what would bring confidence back to Ethereum and potentially altcoins. I do like to try to distinguish Ethereum from altcoins because I think it does stand in a class of its own. And it's another reason why I tend to always hold some position in Ethereum, but I will be increasing my position slightly in Ethereum if we can get above the 100-week. But primarily, I would increase it when Bitcoin gets above the 20-week. So that's what I'm looking at. So again, you can see that Ethereum has still maintained some ground on Bitcoin with respect to this ratio, and you can see this macro level picture of Ethereum, of the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio, and we've talked about this before. This pattern where we come down and then we come up. We have a peak, a second peak, our kind of our last gas, and then our capitulation. So remember, so up, first peak, second peak, last gas, capitulation. So down, up, first peak, second peak, and then last. You could kind of say this is the last gas here, and then we're in the capitulation. Now, I would like to argue that this looks very different from over here because, again, the cycles are getting longer. So if you're new to that idea, just stick that in your back pocket, and also note that we're also looking at sub cycles because there's several Ethereum Bitcoin cycles that happen during a full Bitcoin cycle. So what I'm looking for, as we have mentioned many times in the past, is for Bitcoin to get above the 20-week and to hold it. That is the key thing that needs to happen, because if you look at a past market cycle with Bitcoin, where did Ethereum ultimately start pumping? Now, I know I'm going to get some people that are going to say, it could be a coincidence because Ethereum did just come out, and that's true, but it doesn't mean we can't look to see what was going on with Bitcoin at the time, because if the price of Bitcoin was crashing, I don't think Ethereum would have been going on 1,000x ROI. I just don't think that's going to happen if Bitcoin is crashing. So remember, in the first quarter of 2016, Bitcoin held the 20-week moving average. During that time, if we go back, during the first quarter of 2016, this is when Ethereum really started pumping. And that's when we saw a move of 1,500x over 63 days, or 9 weeks. The second time that Ethereum really started moving was when Bitcoin reached its previous all-time high. And that occurred over here. So if we just look at this line and come all the way over here, in the first quarter of 2017 is when Bitcoin hit its previous all-time high, corresponding to back over here at around $1,100. So in the first quarter of 2017, this is what Ethereum did. So we're going to just let's go from here up to this peak, around 5,000% return. And then finally, Ethereum had its last kick at the end of Bitcoin's bull run. Now, I'm a big proponent of diminishing returns and lengthening cycles. I don't think Ethereum is going to experience anywhere near these types of gains. I still think it's going to see significant returns. I just don't think it's going to be anywhere this close. So what we're looking for is Bitcoin to actually hold the 20-week. I don't know when that's going to happen. It might not happen in 2020. It might not be until 2021. I imagine we'll at least test the 20 week again in 2020, and if we hold it, great. You can see the last time that Bitcoin held we were testing the 20 week, you know, Ethereum started taking off, kind of reminiscent of these times. But then we had a pandemic, okay? But again, even without the pandemic, I do like to say lengthening cycles. This is going to take longer this time around than it did last time. So what I'm doing, what I generally do, is again, when Bitcoin is below the 20 week, I consolidate into primarily Bitcoin and stable coins and some Ethereum. When Bitcoin starts to recover, if it can get above the 100 week, I maybe will start putting some more into Ethereum. But again, when it gets above the 20 week moving average, which is currently sitting at around $7,700, if we can get above that price level, then that is when I would become very bullish on Ethereum, and looking to ride that wave a little bit and to potentially take profits if we see, another decent return. But again, if you're a long-term holder, which I am basically a long-term holder, but I do sometimes make swing trades during key milestones, like holding the 20 week or not holding it. I find that by doing it, if you can be patient about it, it generally works out for the best. Obviously, you could probably find a time where it doesn't, but in general, on the macro scale, it does tend to work out. So I would just say, stay focused, stay diligent. If you're a long-term holder, there's nothing wrong with that. I do think Ethereum, if we see another Bitcoin bull run, which I think we're going to see, peaking sometime in 2023, plus or minus like 6 months or so. That's what I more or less think. I don't think we're on a 4-year cycle by any means. I posted a video a few days ago talking about the evidence of lengthening cycles, and I go through a lot of charts to try to back it up. So please at least go watch that video before you criticize that viewpoint. But again, if you hold that position that Bitcoin will go on another bull run, and if it does peak sometime, say way out here, then this is probably still a great time to be purchasing Ethereum. And again, I am very bullish on Ethereum. I think basically most people use Ethereum for something or another. It's definitely one of the most used coins in the space, and the fact that it's also pretty much leading decentralized finance, and then you have ERC20s built on it. Unfortunately, most of which are scams, but still there's a lot of tokens that are legit that are being built on it, which is great, and I think that's a good thing. Now, one of the things I want to talk about in general for those people who hold Ethereum also tend to be people who hold a lot of altcoins. And I just want to make sure I talk about this really quick. So you need to be aware that during another bull run, a lot of the coins, this is my opinion, this is not financial advice, this is my opinion. I think a lot of coins that you saw previously, boom with Bitcoin and Ethereum, I don't think a lot of those are going to see anywhere near what they saw in the past. I think many of them will never even get close to the previous all-time highs. Look, the space, in my opinion, is not big enough. People want to see real-world utility. Bitcoin, I consider, more digital gold. That is, if you've heard of cryptocurrency, only vaguely, or if you're getting into the space, you've heard of Bitcoin, and then Ethereum is that next natural step because of all the utility it provides. But remember, for every dollar that you're not putting into either Bitcoin or Ethereum, which I think would see great returns themselves, for every dollar not going into those, there's an opportunity cost there. So if your idea is to just throw money at 20 different coins in the top 1,000 and hope one of them does well, if one of them does well and the other 19 go to zero, then that one coin that did well needs to do really well to make up for the fact that you're not putting it in a coin like Bitcoin or potentially Ethereum that have a much higher likelihood of seeing a decent return. So please consider that. I try to bring more of a level-headed approach to this channel and not just shill 100 different coins and say they're all going to $1 million or something. It's not the case. I think if we're lucky, Ethereum will see a really good return. Um, maybe 5,000, maybe 5,000 per Ethereum, maybe 8 or 9,000. But even if we do get to those levels, it's only going to be for a few days, and then we're going to retrace significantly. And I know that that might sound a little strange to say, oh well, I don't like to say things are going to just go to a million and then say, well, Ethereum is going to go to $10,000, which is 100 times what it is currently. And I'm not saying that it definitely has to get to that point, but if we do see another bull run and Ethereum continues on the track that it's been on, it's hard to imagine it not being part of that speculative bubble from where I am. So from where I am, I'm still investing in Ethereum. I'm still investing in Bitcoin. I've consolidated most of the other positions into Bitcoin and stablecoins and Ethereum, and I'm focusing on on these for right now. If Bitcoin gets back above the 20-week, we might diversify more, put more into Ethereum, and to really ride that wave. But remember, if Bitcoin is not doing well, Ethereum is not going to do well. That is my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. So if you guys like the channel, if you guys like the content, please check out the Telegram channel, which you can find here. So it's this link here, which you can find in the description below. And please also subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you want, I'm probably gonna I do have a Patreon account, which you can find in the description below, where I post a lot of reports and risk updates, macro level analysis. I think I'm going to change that up a bit, and I think instead of posting monthly reports, I'm going to change it to weekly newsletters, just because of how volatile the space is. The macro level views don't change that much, but I think providing continued input on the markets on a weekly basis could be informative to people, and I could change up the graphs each week and do that. So if you guys like that, then check that out. But if you want to just support the channel for free, then I would appreciate it if you at least subscribe. So that'll wrap it up for this video, guys. I will talk to you next time. Bye.